Hello, and I want to welcome you to a discussion on Chapter 5 of Applied Mathematics, Number Theory in the Real Number System. This will be a video on guided answers to problem sets. This will be from sections in Chapter 5. Section 1 is number theory, and it is just basically vocabulary, so just want to read the book or refer to the notes. So actually we're going to be starting in Section 2, integers. So let's get started. First, you may be asked to solve some addition problems like this. And what you basically want to think about when solving these kind of problems is think about a ground. And if you dig a hole in the ground, think about how deep it goes, and think about this as ground level. And think about this ground level being 0. That way anything above the ground is positive, and anything below the ground is negative. You can even think of it as money. Say you let someone borrow $10. That means that person has $10, so they're above the 0 mark while you are down. Now they're going to be in debt because they owe it back. You can think of debt as negative, something that is going to be taken away. So if we look at example 1 right here, we see negative 5 plus 5. So you can think of that as at ground level. You dig down, because of the negative and negative 5, you dig down 5 feet. Alrighty? And then you're going to add 5 feet. So you add 5 feet. And where are you? Well, you dug 5 feet and then you filled it up 5 more feet. So you're basically still at 0. You're at the ground level. Okay, if we look at number 2, the only thing that we see is that 6 plus this quantity negative 3. Well, you can kind of think of this as the following. 6 minus 3, which you can probably solve as 3. Or you can think of it as, first you're at 0, you're at ground level. 6 you start off with, it's a positive 6, so you know you're above 6 feet. And then add negative 3. So you're going to take half of that away. You're going to go subtract 3 feet. So how many feet are you left with? You're left with just positive 3 feet, or just 3. To continue on, say with number 4 you were at ground level, then you start off with negative 8. So you dig down 8 feet. Remember, this is negative, this is positive. So you're down 8. And then plus 0, so you do nothing. You're just stuck at negative 8. With 5, you can think of this as starting off at 0, and then first you have this negative 9, so that means you're going to go down 9 feet. You're down 9. Plus 3, a positive 3 tells you to rise from where you stopped, so you're going up 3 feet. Well, remember, we're still going to be below, so we're going to have a negative answer. And we just say that we were at 9, and then we had to take 3 away from that, so it's 6. So we're at negative 6. Think about subtraction. You can use our same method. If you're starting off at 0, this starting off at negative 8, you can want to go down 8. And then we're going to subtract 2. So that minus tells us to go further down. And how many? 2. So what's that? That's 10. And since we're below the ground level, we're at negative 10. Okay, and then something like number 2, 7 minus 3, that's probably something you've done for quite some time. It's just 4, where you could use our motto of being at ground 0. Positive 7 tells you to rise to 7. Minus 3 tells you to take 3 away, leaving you with just 4. Okay, with number 3, there are some rules you'll need to familiarize yourself with. That this right here, that's like saying a negative times a negative, which you're going to learn about later in multiplication with signs, but this is really saying 4 minus a negative 4. And what happens with these two negatives is they turn out to be a positive. So it's really like saying 4 plus 4, or just 8. Now let's try it with number 4. We have negative 7 minus a negative 2. If we look at these two minuses, that's just like saying plus 2. And using our model from before, being at 0, and then we go down 7 for the negative 7, and then it's a positive 2. So we have to raise 2. And where are we at? We're still below, but we're now at 5. And then number 5, 4 minus 0, anything minus 0 is what you were subtracting it by. So the answer is just 4. Alrighty, rules for multiplication. The product of two numbers with like signs, positive times positive or negative times negative, is positive. The product of two numbers with unlike signs, positive times negative or negative times positive, is a negative number. These are some very important rules you're going to want to familiarize yourself with. So you might want to jot these down in your notes or pause the video and capture or document this in your book. Alrighty, so as we can see from multiplication number 1, we have a positive because nothing is right here, so we just go ahead and denote that as a positive, times a negative. And according to our rules, a positive times a negative is going to yield a negative. Now just carry it the regular multiplication of 5 times 5 is 25. Okay, number 2, 5 times 0. Anything times 0 is 0. Looking at number 3, we have a negative times a negative. And what happens according to our rules if we do a negative times a negative? We get a positive. Now just carry out your rules multiplication. 3 times 2 is 6. So it's positive 6, or you can just write 6. Looking at number 4, we have a negative 8 times 2. That's like saying we have a negative times, since there's nothing in front of that 2, we know that's a positive. That's a negative times a positive, so we get a negative answer. Okay, now just carry out our rules of multiplication of 8 times 2. That's 16. Okay, rules for division. It's a lot similar to the rules of multiplication. The quotient of two numbers with like signs, positive divided by positive or negative divided by negative, is a positive number. The quotient of two numbers with unlike signs, positive divided by a negative or a negative divided by a positive, is a negative number. These are also some important rules to remember and memorize for later on down the road. So looking at division, number 1, we have a positive because there's nothing here, divided by a positive, so we know our answer is going to be positive. And we just carry out our rules of division. 64 divided by 8 is a positive 8, or you can just write 8. With number 2, we have a positive divided by a, or negative divided by a positive. And according to rules, we're going to have a negative to happen. And now just carry out our division of 9 divided by 3 is just 3. Okay, looking at number 3, we have, since there's nothing out in front of this 8, we can consider that a positive. So a positive divided by a negative is a negative. And now we just carry out division of 8 divided by 4, which is 2. Okay, and number 4 and 5, they look a lot similar, but there are some very important differences between the two. With 48 divided by 0, you're going to get something, if you type that in your calculator, anything divided by 0, you're going to get an error. So we can call that undefined. Now with number 5, 0 is being divided by something instead of something divided by 0. So what happens when you take 0 and divide it by anything? You get 0 for the answer.